did you talk about?
Oh, I explained to her what the competition was. We haven't gotten like what she does because we probably need to record it, but
yeah, we're
like,
just kind of generally talking.
Yeah.
So, if you want to introduce yourself, tell us what you do.
Okay, my name is Eleshia Brandon. I am the compliance officer and BSA officer. I said I'm not really in the business of making the bank money, but I save the bank money. So I am the one that makes sure that the bank is compliant with all the rules and regulations that the government sets upon us. And so that's just my main objective, is to make sure that everything we do here is compliant with the laws. I didn't know I was going to be a semi-lawyer, but that's kind of what it kind of turns into. And then for the BSA officer, that's the Bank Secrecy Act. We are required to report suspicious activity that involves illegal happenings that can be from money laundering, drug sales, human trafficking, like tax evasion, those kinds of things. So we have to watch people's transactions and make sure that there's nothing suspicious going on with the transactions. So a lot of behind the scenes stuff that never really gets seen.
Kind of first question is, how does a community bank position like that differ from like a large regional bank? Like, because I'm sure you have a different job than somebody who would in the same position at a big regional one.
Yeah,
Like,
so we just have 3 branches. You know, some banks have 300 branches. So I am the only compliance officer. And so I manage the 3 branches. Lots of banks have a compliance officer and then compliance associates, you know, at each branch or things like that. So it is kind of overwhelming at times, but my thing is that most compliance officers are known for saying, no, you can't do that. But what I try to say is, we can't do it that way, but let's try to figure out how we can do it. And so just having that mentality helps with like my loan officers, people that open new accounts, things like that, is how do we do this in a way that is still legal, but not necessarily how it's being presented. So a lot of flexibility.
Oh, that was fun. So my next question is, how is the bank dealing with the exit of your senior officers? How does that affect you and your position and things being changed and switched around?
So you mean like with Bob's retirement? Yes. And things like that? So I actually stepped up with that announcement. I was just a vice president, and so upon that announcement, I was promoted to senior vice president to help alleviate, I guess, some of that stress that might come along with his retirement and Tony's, upcoming transition. And so to help with Tony and his transition, I was kind of bumped up a little. So, I mean, I've benefited from the transition significantly.
Do you think the bank is responding to the transition well? I know everyone has sort of talked about how this is the first major transition that they've undergone since they've been here.
Yeah, so I've been here, this will be my 21st year, and Bob is the second CEO. And he probably told you how long. It's like 13 or 14, 15 years. And so for the majority of my tenure here, he's been the boss. So for a lot of people that have been here less than 15 years, 10, 5, we have a lot of less than 5, it is something that could be very substantial. But I think that getting out in front of it, I'm a big proponent of communication. If it's not a secret, then it shouldn't be a secret. And so getting it out there and trying to get people to, Tony to interact with the people that he's now going to be supervising, and trying to just form those relationships in a different manner. So before, he'd been a subordinate or whatever, and now he's like leapfrog to, being a superior, and just trying to say, hey guys, I'm still the same Tony, I'm still the same Eleshia, we just got to have a different working relationship. And I think getting out there so far in front of it has really helped get some buy-in and to calm a lot of people's fears. We've done not really personality tests, but gauges for personality. And we have a lot of people that like to abide by the rules. They're very rule oriented and very steady. Like they need to know like what's coming. And so I think that getting out there pretty early has helped alleviate some of that, as opposed to, you know, at the end of the year being like, guess what, I'm retiring in 6 months,
Oh,
you
gosh.
know, so.
So,
Excuse me, I need to get a call for a few minutes.
so my next question is, we're gonna transition to training and technology related questions. So, what training does the bank provide for staff or senior leaders? And on that same note, how does it help career development for younger staff?
So I guess I wouldn't call it a downfall, but most large corporate banks have training programs. So like all their employees go through their training, and we don't necessarily have like a specific training program that, you know, takes you from being a teller all the way to where, you know, I started as a teller and now I'm senior management. Like I've just learned the ropes as I've gone. And a lot of it is self-motivated. Like, you know, the rest of the week I'm going to be out at training because I have to have so many continuing education hours. So it's a lot of self-responsibility and self-motivation to make sure that what you're trained on, and what you need, filling in the gaps, you just kind of do yourself. So while, you know, the big companies have like a formal training program, we don't. And so as we grow, I kind of see that maybe as something that we might need to like learn or implement or something somehow with technology, because those programs are expensive. And the technology that it takes to drive those is very expensive. So, you know, if we were to have another branch or a few more branches, then it might be something that we would have to implement as some corporate training. But at this moment, it's kind of, we have like a blanket training that everybody takes annually online, and they have to get it done each month. But beyond that, it's just like self-driven.
So my next question is, sorry, I'm reading them. How has the bank been examined since the pandemic? Does managers prefer having examiners on site or remote?
So if I recall correctly, we were examined during COVID, and there were some on-site and some off-site. It can be a plus and minus either way. Like if they're here, they're in your office, you know, like they're always speaking to you. But it's so much better to have a one-on-one conversation that you can clarify. And if it was misunderstood or misconstrued, you're like, no, that's not what I meant. But if they're not on site, they're kind of out of sight, out of mind, except that they're like bugging you on the phone or with email, you know, and it's harder to kind of clarify what you meant by a statement that you wrote in an email if they read it, you know, with the wrong context. So I think there are plus and minuses to both, having them on site or having them virtually. I think during COVID, they did most of it online, but then they came in for some important meetings, and so that helped clarify some things. So I think like a hybrid is kind of where they're going.
Okay, and then I think that's it. Do you have any other questions?
How is like the transition with technology, like how you talked about like with the hybrid, has that like been more beneficial for you guys? Because I know like obviously you want to establish that like face-to-face conversation. Like did y'all ever do Zoom, or is it like never like that because of like I guess security reasons? And like how do you feel like your bank is going to change with the new updates in technology, especially with trying to maintain that relationship with customers?
So prior to COVID, we were in that aspect like zero virtually, nothing.
Really? Okay.
Totally old school. If it was not in person, it wasn't done. COVID forced us to buy a fleet of laptops so that like our officers could work from home. We attempted like a week on, week off, like a A/B schedule, and it just didn't work. Like we were so busy that it was easier to be in the office than it was to be at home virtually. So we did buy a bunch of laptops. We invested in Zoom. So now we have the capability to have Zoom meetings. So we do kind of hybrid now. And so like with our board meetings, all of our committee meetings, we give the directors the option to call in virtually if they're not feeling well, because our board is more of an aging board. And so, you know, we don't want them to feel like compromised if they came in and somebody beside them was coughing or whatever. So if they don't feel well or whatever, they do have the option now to call in virtually on Zoom, which was not an option prior to COVID. And so if we're sick or if something's going on in our homes now as officers, we can work at home as well. It's not as conducive to making good work, but it does work in a pinch, you know, on holiday, like snow days or things like that. If we don't open, like things don't get done. We have to work NSFs and ACH files and things like that. So somebody would have to come to a bank to work to do those. So now it's nice to have those laptops, but it's not anything that we have a compliance officer that works from home, which a lot of the corporate banks, that's what they're allowing now, is some of their senior management to work from home, but that's not an option right now.
So I guess the last question I have is, so we read on your website that this bank has been voted Murray's favorite for the past 19 years. What do you think makes Murray Bank stand out as the best bank in Murray, even with all of the larger banking institutions?
I think the number one thing is that we are accessible. When people call the bank, we answer. There's not an answering service that answers the phone. You're not, please press 1 for the loan department or whatever. There are live people answering the phone every time you call this bank. And then when you come into the branch, we have several loan officers that are always willing and able to talk to you about getting a loan or opening an account. It's just, I think accessibility is the major point. And during COVID, we were open. We closed our doors for, I don't remember. It's so,
Yes, yeah.
In the past now, we just briefly, maybe a month. I don't even think it was that long. But we were here. You could go through the drive-through. If you needed to talk to somebody or open an account, we would do the paperwork and then we would meet you outside. During that time, PPP exploded. That was my responsibility to get us available to have PPP loans. And we just soon realized that we couldn't have a closed lobby with all these people coming into the bank trying to get all this free money. And so we ultimately decided to just open up. We put up plexiglass and things like that, to kind of help. But we just worked better with the doors open and our people here.
And do you think that's a testament to the community bank that you are?
Yes. Mm-hmm. We closed PPP loans out on tailgates, on the hoods of trucks. You name it. We had a table set outside that if they didn't want to come in, we would sign out there on the table on the back door. We just tried to make it convenient and safe for the people. If they came in, they didn't care, we would just come in, do it in our office. But if they wanted to take extra precautions, then we did that. But we didn't limit their access to the bank. And we hear over and over how appreciative they were of that. And during PPP, it didn't matter if you were a customer or not. If we made the decision that if they had all the qualifying information and the application looked good, we accepted it. And there were banks in town that if you were not a customer of theirs, they would not do a PPP loan. And so we did. And we had banks sending non-customers to us to get those PPP loans.
Do you think that created some new customers for
Absolutely.
you? Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you think Murray has created any other innovations like the PPP loan for its customers that is stuck?
I don't know. We just, at that time, we were not an SBA lender, and so it took me almost a month to get into their portal to be able to access the program. But once we did, we already had our process in place that night. As soon as we got into the portal, we were here until midnight. We had a stack of applications. We were we can't get in yet, but as soon as we did, you'll be in there. We were here till midnight, putting in applications. We were turning those around so fast. We couldn't do it fast enough. It was crazy. And then the fees that we earned off of that, now banks are so liquid, and that's because of all the fee income that came from PPP. It is a direct result. And that money, I was skeptical. You're working with the government. Is this really going to work? Are we going to get paid back? But every single loan that we had got paid back by the government.
Wow.
Yes.
Dang.
Mm-hmm. and before the end of the year 2021, because I wanted to be done with it. I was so done. I'd done with PPP for 2 years, and I said I want every one of these forgiven by the end of the year, and they were. So we did not start 2022. Now Bob will tell you, the president, like, they were anticipating still getting some fee income into 2022, but I was like, I cut that. Not getting any more. No. So, but we all work together, and that's what we're about. When things happen, we all just jump in, and it's like, how can I help? How can we make this work? What do we need to do to make this easy for our customers? And I think that the people saw that. I think they saw us outside or delivering paper or answering the telephone, having the doors open. At some points, our drive-through was so full, that we were running out there and getting transactions and bringing them inside, so that the people wouldn't have to wait so long in the drive-through when we were quote unquote closed. But it was harder to be closed than it was to open. So, and then there are banks that didn't open their lobbies for like the whole year or 18 months or whatever, and we just couldn't work that way.
I'm trying to think about another one. Because I know you're with compliance, you actually might know some more of these. What was was there any changing in like what type of assets you wanted to hold during the COVID? Because there was kind of a transition, or at least that I saw, is cash on hand kind of went down over the past 5 years, but security holdings have been going up.
Totally not my realm.
Totally not your realm.
No,
that
was
perfectly
Marla.
fine.
That was Marla.
I actually wanted to, but we were just going for so long. I was like, it's okay, we'll get another time.
No.
Okay, but Marla, okay, good to know.
Yeah, if you have any follow-up questions or whatever.
No,
She's the financial officer, so she would, all those securities and bonds and all that stuff.
We were just talking about community banks and what that means and what it means to be a Murray Community Bank. It was like,
didn't even really get into the financials. Yeah.
She had a lot of information.
Yes.
Is she also retiring? Is that?
Yes, the end of next year. So Bob will retire in June, and I think she's ending in December. So yeah, the like top 1 and 2.
You were.
And she's been here, like, she started just a little bit before I did. So, I mean, like, she's been here the whole time. So, yeah. Phil will be here just a little longer than I have been. I think he was in here right before me. He was a few months before I started. So, he and I will have the longest tenure. I guess I'll be number 2.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Doesn't feel like I've been here 21 years.
Okay.
And that is another, testament to working in a good facility, is like, I've walked across that lobby 21 years downstairs, and it's hard to believe that.
I mean, burnout in our generation, and we haven't even gotten there. But
Yeah.
I feel like we're just
Like, you're
so,
like 6 months, you're like, oh, I'm so tired of this job. But yeah, 21 years in June, it just, and I've done lots of different things. Started as a teller, processed loans, was a loan officer, did some marketing for a while, and then just settled on compliance.
Is this your favorite position so far? Or
Yeah, I think so. I'm not a outgoing, like, I can, I took dance all my life. I can dance in front of a room of strangers, but I cannot talk individually to a room, like, go around a room and talk to strangers all night. It's so weird. Like, people like that, I can't believe that.
I feel that. I was a dancer as well.
Huh?
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a lawyer.
Yeah,
You
I
don't
do
have to
want
talk.
to be a lawyer. I can talk like that, but if it's like, okay, now go meet all the people, I'm like, oh,
Like, I can stand up in a room full of people,
Yes.
I can dance, I can talk, I can do
Yes.
whatever.
But it's
But
like,
if
go
I have to
meet them.
talk to you and you
Yes.
and you and you and that person and that person, like, carry on the same conversation with like 15 different people, no.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can make you feel like you know me and I'm your best friend to a room of 100 people, but don't ask me to go individually
Yeah.
make you feel that way. That's
Yeah.
not.
Oh, I would love that.
Uh-huh.
I can't do the public speaking.
Yes, so
wow.
it's so weird. And that's what we kind of did with the personality thing, was like, we determined that they're called birds or whatever, but there are parrots that like to get around and work a room, but they don't like the spotlight really like on them. And then you have owls that are wise and studious, and they kind of, stare at the room and see what's going on, and just observe. And then you have doves, they're the peacemakers, they're the ones that want the rules to be followed, no confrontation. And then you have the eagles that are the ones that are kind of the bosses, or they like things done a certain way. So it's nice to know, like, kind of when you're working with somebody that you like to work a room and you don't like to work a room. So to ask somebody, hey, I need you to go to the chamber breakfast, you're probably not the one that needs to go, but you should.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of having that baseline of your peers is helpful, and especially when managing, to what kind of projects to ask your employees to do or not to do. So some people think it's funny, but I have found great value in it.
Are you guys very close, especially since like a smaller, like, does that help you guys, like you said, like?
Yeah, you have friends.
Yeah.
Like, I spend more waking hours probably a week with these people than I do my family.
Mm-hmm.
So, having those conversations and becoming friends, and to have a place that allows it. Like, a lot of corporations don't want you to have that level of comfort with each other, just because of turnover and exits and things like that. But it's not ever been frowned upon here. And so, like, I met my best friend here. She doesn't work here anymore, but she is my best friend.
Audacity.
Yeah, she left. She has kids and wanted to work in the school system, but like having that, we go on vacations together and so things like that. So having the ability to have that type of relationship is very neat.
I think we're good.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay.
If we have any more questions, we definitely will let you know.
Okay.
Any leading remarks that you got, advice?
No, I don't know. I hope y'all